The Chinese Communist Party rules its people with iron control. But as the country grows more powerful, it is extending its grip beyond its borders.
因为他们的野心已经远远不止于此了，我感觉他们的爪牙就是已经越伸越远了。
Sky News can reveal new details of how China is pressuring other states to do its bidding, trying to intimidate people into spying on their friends and family.
给个 U 盘，你去插在你前妻的电脑里，然后我们去抓这个集中营里这泄密的人。
Asking authorities to detain and deport targets.
They said, we will deport your husband. Yes, China want him. I asked, what's his crime? They said, we don't know.
One country in particular has been a happy hunting ground for Chinese security services, the United Arab Emirates.
Ama durduk yere bir hayatındaki çocuklarının babası. Durduk yere kayıp yani. Öldü mü, kaldı mı, ne oldu, ne bitti hiçbir şeyden haberim yok.
In the middle of the glitz of Dubai, the people on China's list simply vanish. We've spent months speaking to people in different countries all around the world. What they have in common is that each one of them became a target for China's long reach, coming for them wherever they were. It is a shadowy world of spies and thugs, of threats and abductions, of fear and of grief. Here's what we found. Xinjiang, northwest China, home to the Uyghur people and other minorities. It's a place that's at the center of China's crackdown, with Uyghurs and other minorities being detained in vast numbers. China says the measures are necessary to combat extremism. Many of the people we've spoken to have been caught up in that campaign of repression. The first is Jazuri Burunchi, a Uyghur man who used to work for a local Communist Party committee before leaving for Europe. Jazuri's ex-wife was a whistleblower, with important information on the repression in Kashgar, a city in Xinjiang. In August 2019, Jazuri got a WhatsApp message from a friend who was still in Xinjiang, asking him to meet in Dubai.
前妻说手里有一个很重要的文件，为什么要现在去？你不觉得有点怎么说呢？很巧合，在卡西有一个集中营，在那集中营里有，我记得可能是800多人。 的地址和名单、出生年月日。
Still, he decided to go. He was met at the airport by this man. They took him on a tour of Dubai, Jazuri filming these sights himself. The man told him what he wanted.
我知道你每个周末去你前妻家看你的孩子们。在你的前妻电脑里，有个我们想要的文件，如果你想跟我们合作，事情很简单，你不必要去那么辛苦的工作，我们会给你很好的佣金。
But the offer came with a threat as they were driving through the desert.
就问，在这里的沙漠有没有什么动物之类的？他们说这里什么都没有，就是把你杀了。 20年也没人会找到你的尸体之类的。
Jazuri agreed. They told him they would give him a USB key. All he had to do was insert it into his wife's computer back in Europe.
当我离开迪拜的时候，我问过他们这个 U 盘，如果我出案件有没有什么问题？他们说，你放心，这种事情我们做的很多。
He took the USB key and went back to the Netherlands. Then he called the police and gave them the key. But the men kept contacting him. They sent him this video of his mother. They said she was in poor health, but that he could help her by getting the documents.
他们自己也说过，在荷兰有他们的人。可能在我们现在谈话的当中，也有许多维吾尔人在被杀。他们就像怎么说呢？灭口，就我刚刚说的那种，不让外界知道我们那里发生的悲惨的状况，他们不惜一切代价，去把这个秘密文件给收回来。
The United Arab Emirates is key to the stories of all the people we've spoken to. In recent years, China has been hugging the tiny Arab state tight. In 2018, Xi Jinping himself visited, the first trip by a Chinese leader in 3 decades. His plane was even given an Emirati fighter escort as it landed. The UAE has also signed up to China's Belt and Road Investment Initiative, and China is now one of its largest trading partners. And, crucially, the two countries have an extradition treaty. Wang Jingyu now lives in Europe. He was a teenager when he voiced his support for the Hong Kong protesters. He had already fled to Turkey, but his parents, still in China, were quickly detained. And then they came for him in April last year.
First time living in Istanbul, some hotels. First hotel when I sleeping, one Chinese man, he make a phone call to hotel reception, and the hotel reception transfer telephone to my room, and he told me, "You are criminal, I will kill you." And also the second day I changed another hotel, but also these things is happen.
Wang made plans to go to the US. His flight transited through Dubai.
When I arrived Dubai airport, I need to go to another departure gate. On the road, the CID officer, then they stopped me and then told me, we have some question, want to ask you, just need very little time. Because the detention center, they have a telephone. I use telephone, big phone call to my girlfriend, ask her come to Dubai to pay the lawyer to do something, help me.
His girlfriend, Wu Huan, arrived the next day, only to be detained too. First at a Dubai police station, then a detention center, and then somewhere else.
大概是30号左右，然后来了2个中国人，他们把我带到那个审讯室，把我就是手铐用那个叫那种手铐把我铐起来，然后把我带到一个黑色的一个商务车上面去，然后当时开车的应该也是一个中国人，他们把我带到一个外表就是很正常的一个别墅，但是里面呢就是被改造成了很多小单间，是铁门关着的，就像监狱一样。
And Huan says that she saw Uyghurs inside the same black site, which she thinks was somewhere in the outskirts of the city.
有一次我发饭的时候，打开门的时候，我就是看见有一个女生在那儿咆哮，她说：“你们为什么要关我？我要回土耳其，我要去土耳其。”这是我第一次看见，有其他人。当时那个女生应该是新疆人的长相。
Both Wang Jingyu and Wu Huan say they were questioned by Chinese officials on UAE soil.
在我看来，他们应该都是中国领事馆的，大多数都是。目前我知道的只有一个人，他就是那个领事馆的人，那个叫总领事，他只给我介绍过的，叫李旭航，就他。
After going public with their ordeal and after intervention from US activists, both were released.
我心里面也是非常恐惧的，但是，我觉得应该还有一个就是想要，揭露，因为我还想要一种心里面，如果我当时能够出去，我一定不会让他们就是继续嚣张下去。我要撕开他们虚伪的面孔，我要把这些事情告诉全世界，让全世界的人都知道他们丑恶的一个嘴脸。
Amanisa Abdullah and Nigara Yusuf are both Uyghurs, originally from Xinjiang. They both moved to Turkey as China's campaign of repression intensified. But even there, their families were not safe. It was in Istanbul that Nigari met her husband, Hussein.
İlk görüşte aşık derler ya hani tam öyle oldu.
But the Turkish authorities came for Hussein too, keeping him for months in a repatriation center in the east of the country.
Sonra beni aradı tekrar. Beni ya Çin'e geri göndereceğiz ya da bize çalışacaksın demiş. Çin polisleri gelmiş, 2 tane Çin polisleri. Ya Çin'e geri götüreceğiz seni ya da bize Türkiye'de şöyle nasıl desem istihbarat olacaksın bizim için. Bizim gözümüz kulağımız olacaksın. Bize her haberini göndereceksin. Uygurlar ne yapıyor, ne ediyor, hangi derneklerle iletişime geçiyor. İşte.
Hussein decided to travel to the UAE with a plan to go from there to Europe. Nigare would go and meet him.
Kocamla en son haberleştiğimde 2017 12 Oktober'de aradı beni. Yani WhatsApp'tan aramıyor tabii ki. Dubai'de arama yasak. Sesli mesaj falan atabiliyor. Dedi ki benim için polisler arıyor. Belki de yakalanacağım. Yani sonunda ne olacağını bilmiyorum. İki çocuğum sana emanet. Seni böyle ortada bıraktım. Gerçekten çok utanıyorum şu anki durumdan. Biri ölse belki onun hazısını tutarız, ağlarız, geçer. Ama durduk yere bir hayatındaki çocuklarının babası. Durduk yere kayıp yani. Öldü mü, kaldı mı, ne oldu, ne bitti hiçbir şeyden haberim yok.
A year later, Amanisa, her husband Ahmad, and their son also travelled to Dubai, shopping for clothes for the baby they were expecting. Ahmad was detained in a police station, then moved.
My husband called me, like his voice is like crying, and he said they took me to another place, another police station. I'm not that place, and they did a urine test and DNA test to me, and he said bring the passport, my passport for me, and they want to deport me soon to China.
A lawyer helped Amanisa, telling her that her husband was being detained by Interpol in Abu Dhabi. She went to their offices.
And I explained this is from the court paper. Even they didn't look at this paper. And they said, no, your husband has to go, we will deport him. Because China wants him.
Her last contact from her husband was in February 2018, a phone call.
Ask Musa, my son, take good care of your mommy. She's pregnant and you are only one of my son. You are a boy. You have to stay strong till I come. Yes, and then the phone was cut.
Sky News asked the UAE, Turkey and Interpol for a response to our reporting, but received no reply. And we put those allegations directly to the Chinese government. We've spoken to around a dozen people who say that China is targeting Uyghurs abroad, interrogating them in what they call black sites, pressuring them to spy on their friends and family, secretly returning them to China without their loved ones knowing anything about anything that's happened to them. What's happening here?
那么中国呢，也始终遵循各国的主权根本不可能在国外设立什么监狱那么更不可能这个像西方媒体一些媒体所报道的那样说什么在迪拜设立了黑监狱这完全是造谣污蔑。
He also denied that anyone was menaced overseas or forced to return to China. They gave us no information about Nigare's and Amanisa's husbands. They have disappeared into a world of shadows. This is where China will continue to operate. And as its power and economic might develop, its reach will only grow longer. Tom Cheshire, Sky News, Beijing.